They want to become platforms. They want to be the platform for the buyer. They want to own the marketplace. They want to own the 7-layer stack. They want to own the 7 partners, part of that team sport. They want to orchestrate for the buyer how to progress because they're the foundational layer. That's what the biggest companies in the world want. That's what Wall Street, by putting Microsoft ahead of Apple a few weeks ago in valuation, that's what they're reminding everyone, is that if you can grab the platform layer in front of every one of your customers and own the marketplace, you are therefore a $1 trillion or a $3 trillion valued company. And those are who's going to be the winners across 300 million businesses around the world. This is where everyone is going. I talked last time about marketplace growth at 86% compounded, serving this new majority buyer. But the interesting thing since then, we had predictions about what would happen in 2025. We thought that AWS might, for example, grow into the top layer, a top 10 distributor by 2025. We made that prediction a few years ago. They've already done it. They did it by the end of 2023. We got 4 press releases in the last few months of companies that are now running billion-dollar businesses just through AWS. That doesn't include any of the other marketplaces. But every other company is wising up to this new digital buyer, and they also understand that 73% of this world goes indirect. So where you might be buying through a certain person, you might be buying through a certain company, how to back end that with marketplace technology and keep it there.
Learn how to master cloud marketplaces in just 5 weeks with our cohort course. Accelerate your growth by tapping into the $300+ billion cloud spend that enterprises have committed to AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Discover the future of go-to-market with Roman. During 10 weekly sessions, you'll learn how to leverage this fast-growing channel and network with top industry experts and partnership leaders. We will dive into marketplace strategies, internal buy-in, building relationships with the cloud, and mastering co-sell. Join our upcoming cohort.
Jay McBain obviously doesn't really need an introduction. I'm fortunate to call him a mentor and a big supporter. He's probably the most strategic and at the same time tactical person in cloud go-to-market. And I'm really excited to give him a floor and hear what are the things that are changing, what are the things that are accelerating this entire trend.
If you heard from me here in December, I'll try to kind of bridge from then till March, but we go back to this world economy. And you have people at Microsoft, for example, talking about Gen AI as a $4 trillion opportunity. It has an impact on the world economy. You talk about McKinsey, who Roman mentioned, made a $17 trillion by 2030 prediction that B2B marketplaces would have a significant impact in terms of how money changes hands at scale. Today, 75% of the world economy, it's how you buy a car, pharmaceuticals, banking, insurance, all industries, moves through channels of some type. And indirect sales, which marketplaces are for everybody who doesn't own the marketplace, is a significant part of this indirect sales conversation as we go forward. If we kind of bump into this year, there's almost $5 trillion, $4.94 trillion that will be spent by businesses and governments across hardware in the upper right, software across the right, bottom right. But for every dollar in hardware and software, there's about $2 in services. The interesting thing about software, you take the 883 billion, you add in cybersecurity software, UCaaS, unified communication. If you take the software out of some of the other components, software should hit $1 trillion this year. And marketplaces were really built to deliver bits instead of atoms, digital marketplaces. And so with $1 trillion market in software, this is obviously where they're seeing the growth. But what we come back to as channel folks, and it's some great sessions after this, talking about channels with distribution, talking about co-sell, but adding up resell and co-sell, 73% of that entire $5 trillion goes to, through, and with partners of some type. And marketplaces where they've done the most development recently is in the multi-partner, in the private offers, in the distributor sellers of records, in the architecture within the actual marketplace to provide for this market, which is highly indirect. And while money changing hands is one part of it, the other parts are the mechanics about how to get everybody into the deal. Just a thing on confidence, because we have headwinds. We have obviously inflation and two global conflicts going on. We have half the world's population, almost 50 countries going to the polls this year, not just on a regular election, but the future of the World Bank, the future of NATO, the future of things that we've come to trust for 50 to 100 years are up for vote this year. So a lot of things are happening in headwinds, but partners remain very, very optimistic. There's historical context to this. We saw the same type of numbers in 2008, which was the last major downturn, and 2001, the one before that. The tech industry has pulled the world out of recession. The last two times it's going to do it again. And partners are in the tip of the spear of optimism that brings the world out. So why are the big hyperscalers? Why are the big SaaS companies? Why are all these marketplaces building so much partner-friendly architecture inside of their systems? This is the tip of the spear that really runs the market. So I want to leave you today because 2024 in the history books will be known as an inflection point. 43 years kind of into our broader partner channel and into our industry, some major things are happening. By the end of the year, the majority buyer of that $5 trillion will be a millennial, born after 1982. So obviously we could spend the whole session here talking about psychology, behavior, different buying journeys and stuff. But suffice it to say, we know a lot about this buyer already. Why? Because the buyers of SaaS, for example, HubSpot and Marketo and ServiceNow and Workday and Salesforce, have been millennials now for a few years. So we've been able to study the changes from Gen X, changes from baby boomers in terms of how they interact. But suffice it to say this, they're digital first, or in many cases now digital only. Gartner just did a research a couple of weeks ago that said 75% of this new buyer doesn't want to talk to a person. And this could be buying a car, your second most expensive purchase in your personal life. You'll get to the 28th moment and buy the car without ever visiting a dealer. And that's totally okay. You'll get to buy $1 million in software without ever going through a demo, going through that kind of human-based part of the market. And that's totally okay to this buyer. They're also obviously very subscription consumption friendly, growing up on Netflix and Spotify, growing up with $1 razor per month or toothbrush per month is totally okay. But we also know now they're integration first buyers. And this is interesting because this is new. If you go back to baby boomers, Gen X, it's always a rating of criteria like price is important to some, service, support, your brand reputation. All these things are important in an RFP. Well, the number one importance now is integrations. How open are your APIs? I will buy a product 80% as good as the next product if it works better in my environment. Marketplaces are that perfect integration first buyer tool that they can build their 7-layer stack. The average hyperscale deal today, AWS, Microsoft, Google, is 7 layers, 7 different companies. The average SaaS deal, Salesforce, ServiceNow, is 7 layers. The average security deal to get to Zero Trust or to SASE is 7 layers. So these 7-layer deals surrounded by now 7 partners. This is new. No single throat to choke. There's no trusted advisor. It's a group of people. If you're outsourcing, for example, your security MDR to another company, I don't want white labeled. I want to see that company. That's why I have 7 seats open and growing. It's a team sport in partnering, and marketplaces actually support this team sports because only one of the members of the team on the field has the ball at one time. So there's only one member of that 7 that may ever collect the money if they do it all. So the fact of the matter is these partners are doing different things. They have different skills and they're coming to the market differently. And in consumer, last time I shared that 79% of people today won't buy a car unless it has a technology integration. This was Apple, but I'm sure they meant Google as well. But can you imagine being in a $4 trillion industry, taking over a dealership from your great-great-grandparents from 120 years ago, and you're about to lose 4/5 of your buyers because you don't have a tech integration? So this is kind of the new buying, but what I didn't show is this is your new Porsche. This is your new Aston Martin. I could rip through 63 companies that now every pixel that faces the driver and the passengers, right from window to windshield, is served up by big tech. Car companies don't build speedometers anymore. They don't manage your climate control. This is an integration that's taken over every part of the driving experience. And this is going to continue. Brings us to number 2, the year of the platform. So we just wrote a 91-page state of platforms with HubSpot and partnership leaders. The idea, though, was to look at the top 50 platforms in the world, serving this new buyer, serving this new economics. And there's this linkage, and Roman and I have talked a lot about this. There's this linkage between marketplace being the center of a platform. The person who owns the biggest marketplace or the biggest platform is correlated together as the winner in that economy. Why did Amazon.com, why did Alibaba win? Because they created gravity. It's not that they called out a bunch of people trying to get them onto their platform. They created a system where everybody wanted in. There's a lineup out the door of tech integrations. There's a lineup out the door of partnerships. And there's a lineup of customers. They've created these network effects. Some people called it a lottery, kind of like Facebook won a lottery. Most recently, TikTok won kind of a consumer lottery. But in business, it's all about gravity. And if you find yourself calling out to get somebody onto your platform or into your network in the later stages, you've lost. There's got to be a lineup out the door, and that's who are these platform winners. There's 91 pages here on how they did that, how they set up the programs, how they built the technology underneath it, how they built the marketplaces to support that. And it's kind of fascinating new area of research that we're really excited about. But the channel, continues to grow. Every company in every industry, we thought we're trying to become a technology firm, and we were wrong. It makes no sense that a pharmaceutical company wants to be a tech company. We're not at the point yet we're going to inject bits, into our system that's going to fix our health issues. We were confused that car companies, we were confused that banks and insurance companies wanted to become tech companies. They don't. They want to become platforms. They want to be the platform for the buyer. They want to own the marketplace. They want to own the 7-layer stack. They want to own the 7 partners, part of that team sport. They want to orchestrate for the buyer how to progress because they're the foundational layer. That's what the biggest companies in the world want. That's what Wall Street, by putting Microsoft ahead of Apple a few weeks ago in valuation, that's what they're reminding everyone, is that if you can grab the platform layer in front of every one of your customers and own the marketplace, you are therefore $1 trillion or a $3 trillion valued company. And those are who's going to be the winners across 300 million businesses around the world. This is where everyone is going. I talked last time about marketplace growth at 86% compounded, serving this new majority buyer. But the interesting thing since then, we had predictions about what would happen in 2025. We thought that AWS might, for example, grow into the top layer, a top 10 distributor by 2025. We made that prediction a few years ago. They've already done it. They did it by the end of 2023. We got 4 press releases in the last few months of companies that are now running billion-dollar businesses just through AWS. That doesn't include any of the other marketplaces. But every other company is wising up to this new digital buyer, and they also understand that 73% of this world goes indirect. So where you might be buying through a certain person, you might be buying through a certain company, how to back end that with marketplace technology and keep it there is what the distributors are doing. Now, cloud distributors, Pax8's the fastest growing company on this entire slide. What they're doing, they don't sell hardware. Obviously, the big marketplaces, which is the focus of today, all the telco master agents, now tech solution distributors are coming over. 25 of them consolidated down to 5, and now they're going after this layer. The big resellers are building these digital capabilities. Managed service providers, which is now a $548 billion industry, 1 out of every $10 gets sold in tech is on a managed contract. The big players that run those operating systems are coming in, and there's 150 marketplace development platforms raising billions of dollars to be this white labeled